So hello, everyone. Kristin Sullivan, the Executive Director of the Ward Museum, and I'm here today to talk with one of our three 2020 to 2021 Living Legends, Jett Brunet. Thank you so much for being here with us. Jett comes from a decoy-making dynasty, really, in Galliano, Louisiana. He's the son of 2014 Living Legend Tan Brunet and the older brother to champion carver Jude Brunet. Jett grew up watching his father carve and was inspired by family trips to the Easton Waterfowl Festival in Maryland and the Ward World Championship as well. Following in his father's footsteps, he started carving at an early age of 9, and by 21, he won his first Best in World title in the Decorative Decoy Pairs competition, which he took both in 1985 and 1987. And Jett now focuses on carving more interpretive pieces and pieces in line with traditional sculpture, and this has served him well. He's taken Best in World in the Interpretive division at the World Championship, both in 2018 and 2019. And in all, I believe he's won more than 35 Best in Show awards and just continues to be an inspiration to fellow carvers. So welcome, Jett. Thank you. All right. Can you start by telling us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and how you got into wildfowl art?
Sure. Hello. I come from a small bayou town about 60 miles south of New Orleans along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana. And I was born in the marsh and with my dad, saltwater marsh between the swamps and the Gulf of Mexico. And there I learned how to hunt and fish and spent a lot of time closely with my father, hunting birds for food. And over my dad's own hunting rig that he made somewhere in the late 50s. So I grew up hunting over Tan Brunet decoys, if you can believe that.
Do you still have any of those?
I do. Me and my brother have the entire collection. Yes. And it's pretty rare and pretty valuable to me. I mean, it's just priceless. And as I grew older, he began at that point the transition from working hunting decoys into the more decoratives as the whole progress of the art form moved forward. And I sat there watching him. So at about 9 years old is when I started carving my first pieces of work, mostly miniatures. And at that time, my dad and Jimmie Vizier were best friends. And Jimmie Vizier was part of sort of my dad's tutor, him and his father. So I sat down between these two legends learning how to carve. So that's, I guess, a great advantage over most carvers in the world who are kind of isolated by themselves, you know. So I had a really paved road to become successful in the carving world, you know.
That's pretty phenomenal.
And I guess by 12 years old is when I started competing. But I was traveling up and down the East Coast of the Waterfowl Festival and the World Championships when I was, you know, just a kid. And so I've got to look at all the greatest artists in the waterfowl world and watch them. But I'm still, instead of just having to remember everything I saw, I could go back home and sit with the best decoy carver to ever live and work and learn. So it was very, very, very lucky for me.
That's awesome, I'll say. And you know, why birds? What captivates you about carving birds in particular?
I guess it's just from seeing from my father and just wanting to be just like him. But he also caught fish and different things like that. But it was something about waterfowl that just captivated me. And I don't know, it was from a young boy watching them fly over when I'm sitting in a duck blind at daybreak or whatever it was. It just grabbed me more than anything else. And I have different ideas still at this age. I want to sculpt other things and do fish and do dogs and deer and other things that people love to look at. But for now, it's still, my heart's in the decoy. That's where I learned my love from the art form and looking at the Ward brothers and all their old pieces, and just sort of, no matter how far we get with detail, I strive to go back to that simplicity of just a finely carved decoy sitting on the water. Just has a special draw for me.
That's great. That's great. And what's something that you've learned over the years that maybe you wish you knew when you were younger, when you're carving?
Wow, that's a good question. Man, it's hard to come up with something because, again, it was my path was just laid out right before me, and any question I had, I could just look back at my dad. And he was so smart in letting me cultivate my own style and talent. I could watch him, learn from him, but he never really forced me in any direction. And I learned by just looking at what he did. And of course, if I was getting off path, he kind of showed me the right direction, but he was so smart at just letting me do my own thing and head toward my own vision, not his vision, you know. And I look back and say that was just how I became so successful then and now as an artist, in that I had a teacher who was not putting his finger on my decoy saying, do this, do that, do that. He just let me go, you know.
It's pretty amazing. Good, a good teacher.
Yeah. He is brilliant, brilliant.
So tell me about maybe a colossal failure that you had, just something that didn't go right as you were making it. And what did you learn from it, or how did you recover?
Wow. Early on, I had a lot of success as a teenager. I won the Outstanding Teenage Carver Award twice, 2 times in a row back when I was a kid. And just when I felt I was ready for world-class competition, my dad had won 3 championships in a row and his 5th, and just got out of the way to let me enter. And I mean, he was just at the top of his game and going to places no one had ever been before. And he just got right out my way and let me enter. Well, the first couple of years that I got in there, it's actually the first year in 1980, I guess 83, 84. And I really thought I was there and amongst the best. And it was a real awakening to me that I had stepped up to a new level and I had made some mistakes. And I think it was a good idea that my dad kind of let me make mistakes, kind of let me do what I was going to do. And I missed the boat. I was in the running, but I was not really close to where I wanted to be. And as difficult as it was then, and as painful as it was to realize I was not one of the best, it motivated me so much to pay so much closer attention to things that maybe the judges were looking for that I had not considered, you know, kind of just doing my own thing. Being essentially a sculptor, I had not spent enough time focusing on detail and painting. So it was a misstep, but in the long run, it turned out to be a really good learning lesson for me that helped me just hone my skills, be more focused on what it takes to be successful in the carving world as compared to just being a loose artist that just does what he wants, you know.
Sure, that makes sense. That's great. What's your favorite part about carving competitions?
I love that you can you know, do all this work by yourself and work for a year and doing your own thing. Then you get up there and get to see what everyone else has done and sort of get in the minds of some of the better artists in there. Some of the ones I've made really good friends with, and get to talk to them and see how they got to that point they were and how that piece came into their mind. Was it just something they developed, you know, over a couple of days, or something they had been thinking of for 2 or 3 years? And having that conversation with some of these greatest carvers just helps motivate you further and helps hone your planning skills and your thinking skills. And how do you get to the end result? And it doesn't have to be a 5-year period of developing an idea. It can be just something you wake up one morning and decide what you're going to do. But it opens your mind to seeing the way other guys get to their end result and making friends and just hanging out with these guys. And I've just been doing it for so long that early on, it was just about the competition for me. And in the past 20 years, it's been, man, going there with something that I'm proud of and just enjoy being there, eating crab cakes and hanging out with my buddies.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely seems like a homecoming for a lot of folks. We missed that this year. Okay. And what's your favorite piece that you've ever made and why?
There's quite a few of my favorite pieces of decorative birds that I made highly detailed when I was competing in the late between 1990 and 2000. But what I've come to most appreciate is the sculpting I've done in the past few years, the interpretive wood sculptures. And there's a piece I carved, which basically a dead mallard with its head hanging over the end of a counter. And I titled it Life Study. And I believe it encompasses everything that I know as an artist and feel as an artist and project. And it, I have it today and it's right in front of me. And I'm looking at it and it's like, okay, that is my favorite work because it came closest to the vision I had when I began the piece. It came the closest to accomplishing what I completely wanted to do and say.
Okay. What is your process like? Do you do models and when you're doing these sculptural pieces, or what's the process like for you?
I'm a very much shoot from the hip kind of artist now, but I visualize pieces very well, and it's something I could do even at 9 years old. I remember I could look into a block of wood and see it and start chopping away with a hatchet like my father did, like Jimmie Vizier did, and how Jimmie's father and Jimmie's grandfather did, which is where my whole family came from, the whole carving lineage of where I am now and my brother. And using solid blocks of wood and just sculpting away everything, like my dad would say, how do you carve a decoy? You grab a block of wood and remove everything that doesn't look like a duck, and there you go. So that's just what's best for me. So I'll get an idea of what I want and make some rough sketches of it, very, very rough, not detailed. And once it's clear in my mind where I'm headed, I just take off with a block of wood and that's it until I get to where I'm going.
That's pretty remarkable. Wow. And tell me about a piece or a project that really pushed you, that maybe made you stretch as an artist.
After carving decoys and mostly ducks, mostly waterfowl for about 30 years, I decided to do a life-size bald eagle. I was asked to do the centerpiece for the Tidewater Inn in the Eastern Waterfowl Festival. And I had about a 2-year notice that I was going to have the masterpiece carving. And I decided it needed to be something big and bold and something totally different than what I had done. So I decided I should do a bald eagle, and just do something different than had ever done before, and really stretch the boundaries of my art. And I waited I wasted about a year before I got started on it. So it left me with a short period of time to get it done, and which really pushed me to make quick decisions, not overthink things, and get through with the piece. And I was very pleased with the results, and was fortunate enough that the gentleman who purchased it, Mr. Sandor Garfinkel, donated it to the Ward Museum when he passed. So it was just one of these things that was a huge stretch for me. And it's still, when I bring my family up to the museum, I've got grandchildren now who've never seen what I've done back in my competition days, get to walk in that museum and see my bald eagle. So I look back now and thinking, wow, I was sort of on a wing and a prayer, and it turned out pretty good.
It's a stunning piece.
Yeah.
It really is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most difficult part of your process, and how do you deal with that?
I think for me, it's I guess like most carvers, it's just a painting. That was the most difficult part for me. Like I said, sculpting was just natural for me. It's something I could do. And working with a hatchet and a knife, watching my father do it, it was natural. I could see the process. When it came to painting, that's sort of one of these things, man, you got to kind of find your own way there.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is, the good news is, you can learn how to paint. You can learn how to paint. You find a teacher, or you just keep trial and error. You make mistakes, you correct them, you keep going, you can go over and over painting. With carving and sculpting, you remove a chip of wood on a bill, it's gone, And I'm not a believer in fillers, so it's gone. Whereas painting, you can paint over, you can paint again, and you can really learn painting. Whereas I don't think you can really learn carving. You can start with a pattern and you can make a nice decoy. But when you're out on your own and you've got to start a carving from scratch, that's very difficult to do. I think that's very hard to do. Painting, it's daunting. It's scary. It's like, where do I start? What color do I start with? I don't even understand it. But in repetition, over and over, and learning, you can learn how to paint. So it's probably the most difficult thing to do, and yet you can come out on the other end pretty successful.
Yeah, yeah, excellent.
In my belief.
Yeah. And what's the most rewarding part of your process?
Once a piece is all done, watching observers and other carvers and just the general public looking at a piece and saying how easy it looks, how easy I make it look. And it's not easy at all, but they just think it, wow, it's so easy for you to do. And I work very hard to make it look easy. And that's sort of a phrase I got from Larry Barth when we talk about it. You know, you hear other carvers work hard, say, wow, you make it look so easy. And that's a great compliment, you know. And then having other artists inspire them to try to do what I've done, because that's what inspired me, is watching other guys do it, watching my father do it. Like, wow, I want to be that. I want to do that. So that's what's rewarding to me.
That's great. Thanks. All right, just a couple of questions left, and one just for fun. What's something? Maybe a hidden talent or something we don't know that you do that, you know, other than carving and painting?
I'm a real bad guitar player, so that's
nice.
That's the second best thing I do. Yeah, that's about it.
Well, you'll have to bring your guitar one of these days, or one of these years. There are a lot of guitar players, actually a lot of musicians, it seems like, among carvers. We've been thinking about doing an open mic during Worlds. We're gonna have to get you playing.
That tempted me once, because several years ago, Floyd Scholes brought his banjo. And I thought, boy, if I could sit on the side and with my guitar and his banjo and just sort of entertain people. But then quite often my guitar playing sounds like maybe a cat caught in a screen door. So I'm like, whatever I've done to impress people with my hands, I just as soon leave it there. So I'll keep my guitar at home.
All right. All right. And then lastly, you know, as one of the 3 living legends for 2020 to 2021, is there anything that you'd like to say to your mentors, peers, friends, or others who might be watching this?
I just feel so fortunate that I've been able to live this life as an artist and knowing all the greatest carvers from the get-go. I met Lim Ward when I was a boy. My daddy brought me up there. And how rewarding it can be, not just to produce a piece of art that you like, but to have others appreciate it, and the friends you meet, the people with the same likes and beliefs and loves that you have. It's just way more important to me now to go to the show and have these connections with these people. And it's more relaxing now. And I just say, man, enjoy every step of it. You know, it's a very rewarding way to make a life.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Jett, for joining me today and for being part of our very strange, virtually modified Ward World Championship weekend. Congratulations on being named one of the living legends for 2020 and 2021. And I can't wait to celebrate with you in person next year. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Absolutely.